7-foot center Eric Reibe should only consider Indiana basketball for this one simple reason.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this, the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Well, again, thank you so much for being here to this free Indiana podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to all of my everydayers. You are the reason this podcast is so successful, and I really do appreciate you all joining us here once again. 7-foot center recruit Eric Reibe should only consider Indiana basketball for one simple reason. I'll tell you about that today, plus some more portal love for this Indiana basketball team. And will there be an offensive surge for Indiana football with a brand new coaching staff on the offensive side? That's what's coming up on Locked On Hoosiers today. Eric Reibe is somebody that we have covered quite a bit on this show, and a lot of people have, because he's one of the best recruits in the 2025 class. He's 7 foot tall, 235 pounds, from the Butler School over in Maryland. And you start looking at the rankings in this 2025 class. He's the number 1 player out of Maryland. He's the number 4 player in the center position. And he's a top 45, top 50 type of guy in the 2025 class. And the reason he should consider Indiana, it's really simple. He could carry on a tradition that we've already built here of 7-foot center success. Khalil Ware just got drafted to the NBA after being a dominant 7-footer here. I think he could have even been better if the team had performed up to its expectations, and I think up to its standards a year ago, but he still got drafted 15th overall as a 7-foot center. You bring in Oumar Ballo from the transfer portal from out west, from the Pac-12. He's another center that I continue to tell you I believe is going to be one of the best centers in the Big Ten and one of the best centers in the country this season, because I think he's just that good. The notes coming out of practices, you can't move the guy. He's just that physically strong, is Oumar Ballo. And then Eric Reibe could be a combination of both of those guys. He's a lot lengthier. He's not as beefy as Oumar Ballo is. He looks a lot more like a Khalil Ware, right? It's hard to look beefy when you're 7 foot tall, but Reibe's a good combination of both of those guys, because he's got the footwork, he's got the handles, he's got the fancy moves inside the lane, but he can also lower his shoulder and just shoot it over top of you when he needs to. And I think Reibe would really benefit in this Indiana offense. Now, Mike Woodson and the Hoosiers are battling with all sorts of big-time programs, Creighton and Oregon. Heck, Harvard's even in the mix as well. There's been some reports he wants to at least consider some of the academic side of things as well, and I totally respect that. So the Hoosiers are in a big battle right now. And UConn is in there too, who has massive center success. And, oh yeah, they're winning national championships back-to-back and going to threaten to win their 3rd in a row this season. So they've got a little bit of an argument. But if you're looking at schools as a center right now, look at what the Hoosiers have done in the past in more in the history, right, compared to just recent history. But this has been a program that constantly pumps guys into the NBA from all different positions, guards, forwards, centers. But center is what we're looking at right now with Eric Reibe in particular. We've had these conversations about a Braylon Mullins or a Trent Sisley, right? Even the Malachi Marinos of the world, who are on the bigger side in those 4 and 5 positions. Eric Reibe's in one spot. He ain't playing anywhere but the 5 on the floor, and that's what the Hoosiers have dominated with here in recent history. And I also think a lot of this plays into the fact of what this roster could look like in the next couple of years. And what I look to is your 2 transfer guards that you brought in this offseason, Cannon Carlisle and Miles Rice, who are still young in their basketball careers, right? You look at Miles Rice, he's a sophomore. You look at Cannon Carlisle, he's a sophomore. So they could be here for the next handful of years on top of the guards that you're trying to recruit right now from the high school ranks in this 2025 class. If Rice and Carlisle become what I think they will become, orchestrators of the offense, masters of the pick and roll, setting up other players for success, if you're Eric Reibe, why would you not want to come and be a part of this? Why would you not want to come and join Mike Woodson and this Indiana Hoosiers team, especially if they have a good season this year like I think we will? We had an episode late last week with our buddy Lance Daw at Locked On Kentucky. We talked about this guy, and I told you that my confidence level was right kind of in the middle. It wasn't super high, but wasn't super low. But that feeling is starting to creep up a little bit because I'm starting to think we're going to get him on campus for a visit, which I was not confident about that much at all because that wasn't really in the cards for a while. And there's still nothing official right now, but that has seemed to gain some traction, build up a little momentum on the fact that, he may end up taking a visit. And if he takes a visit, then it's on. That's step one, or I guess that's the major step, is to get them on campus. There's a lot that's got to be done before that, but you get them on campus, and then you've got, it's up to you at that point, right? It's up to you, Woody, up to you, coaching staff, to do what you got to do and get him here and get him to commit and get him to dedicate his future to Indiana basketball. And I think you could speak to his family and to him and just say, look, we've got this. We've got this handled. We've got this under control. We have proven that we can not just take good talent and put them in the NBA, but we can develop that talent and put them in the NBA. And think about this too, folks. Khalil Ware and Umar Ballo are transfers, right? Khalil Ware transferred in and was here 1 year and got put into the league. Umar Ballo has a chance to do the exact same thing. Reibe, on the other hand, would be raw and a freshman and young and would have multiple years here to really develop that game and become NBA ready. That has to be our selling point to him. And if you're him, why would you not jump on it? Why would you not at least consider coming to the Hoosiers for that particular reason? And if you start piling on some wins and you get other big recruits in the 25 class like we believe can happen, then all of the pieces could come together and Eric Reibe could be that final piece. He could be the thing that pushes this class over the edge in a good way and sets it apart from everybody else. He's a 7-foot center. The Indiana Hoosiers love 7-foot centers. And I think Woodson's offense is going to play to that strength once again this year. That's why Reibe, the 7-foot center in the 2025 class, should consider the Hoosiers for one reason, and that reason only. Well, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, speaking of those guys out of the transfer portal, they're starting to get a little bit of love around the national landscape, but they did at the beginning, but it continues to happen, and I want to continue to do that as well. We'll talk about those guys coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. Some of my favorite parts of the Game Time app, because I promise you folks, I'm not blowing smoke. I'm telling you, I don't use any other app. I don't use any other website. Game Time is where I go to get all of my major sports tickets. And I have family members that have used it on theater and comedy shows as well. And some of my favorite parts are the all-in pricing. All right, so you toggle this feature. It's going to show your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout, and the views from your seat. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Those two things, good enough for me. But if you need one more, their lowest price guarantee, it guarantees that you'll get the lowest price, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here and making this your first listen each and every day. I appreciate you, and shout out to all of my everydayers. I see you guys, I hear you guys, and I really do appreciate it as we're getting into the busy time. Football, basketball, everything is upon us. So be sure that you're right here at Locked On Hoosiers. And the easiest way to do that, if you're on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to our channel. That's the free way to support the show. Since it is a free show, it helps us out and it helps us grow. So thank you so much for that. If you're on audio, be sure you do the same type of things. All right. Be sure you follow us over there. Turn on notifications, subscribe if you can. No matter what audio platform you're on, be sure you do those things as well so you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. And again, it's free. So we appreciate you being here, and any support you show us is much appreciated. Well, the Hoosiers in basketball back in, end of March, April into May, they hit the transfer portal hard. And, well, they had extra time to do it because they weren't competing in the NCAA tournament. And they went out and did exactly what we wanted them to do, right? Mike Woodson and the staff hit the portal hard, and they hit it probably harder than anybody else. And they brought in the best portal class in the entire country. They went and got guards. They got forwards. They got a center. They got everything they needed. Really, two centers, if you think about it. They got everything they needed because they understood that this roster was not where it needed to be. It was nowhere close where it needed to be, given what happened a year ago and the guys that departed the program, the guys that graduated and the ones that get drafted. And that's an every year thing, right? So they went out and they said, okay, first things first, we got to get some guards. And they went out and they got Miles Rice and they got Cannon Carlisle. And they said, okay, now we need some forwards. So they went and got a Langdon Hatton, who is forward center more likely. You go and get Luke Goody, who can shoot the basketball. And then you go and you get Umar Ballo. And so you felt like this was a really good haul for the transfer portal. We've had a lot of discussions about it. But my point in this segment is, the outside world is still respecting the transfer portal class, even though, like I said yesterday, we're not getting the respect we deserve for the season as a whole for what they think we're going to do. They still think we have a really good roster, which it doesn't really add up for me. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Oh, Indiana's got a great portal class. They've got a couple of nice recruits out of high school. They're going to have one of the most talented rosters in the country in the Big Ten. Yeah, that's a great team, but we don't think they're going to do all that much. They'll be okay. They'll be in the mix. That doesn't add up to me. That doesn't make any sense. And my everydayers know that I said this yesterday. I think they've got the blinders on. I think that the landscape of college basketball has this sour taste in their mouth from what happened with Indiana last year, which is understandable. But I do appreciate the fact that they still understand this could be one of the best rosters in this entire conference, an expanded Big Ten conference, by the way. And I totally agree, because think about your portal guys. You bring in Miles Rice at the point guard position, instant upgrade. You bring in Cannon Carlisle at the shooting guard position, instant upgrade. You bring in Umar Ballo at the center position, instant upgrade, because your center left, okay? Langdon Hatton and Luke Goody, on the other hand, are a little bit different because you didn't necessarily upgrade, right? Because those guys are not going to start, but you did get better at that position as a whole, because you still have McKenzie and Baco, but you've got Goody behind him. You still have Malik Renew, but you still have Goody behind him if you need to play him, or a Langdon Hatton at a big 4 or a 5. So you got better overall. And I think the outside world is seeing that. I think they understand that this team is going to be better, but I still think, as is with a lot of you Indiana fans, there's a lot of question marks about Mike Woodson. Right? There's still a lot of concerns with, can he coach this team? Can he game plan for a tough opponent? Can he coach through a game and make adjustments during the 40 minutes? That's something last year, it didn't happen. Now, I think there are multiple causes of that. Okay. I think one of them is, I think Woody struggled to make changes during the games, but I think the roster limited him on the adjustments he could make. That roster was one-dimensional, man. It was one-dimensional. Nobody could shoot. No other person could score other than Ware or Renew until Mbako got hot down the stretch. Your guards weren't doing anything for you. So there was nothing to draw up or anything to change that said, hey, let's get away from throwing it to Khalil Ware and having him bail us out. Let's go and do this and work off the ball over here and get an open shot in the corner. That wasn't a thing. That didn't happen because that team didn't have the ability to do that. With the guys you bring in this year, all of that is going to open up. All of that is going to become a possibility. And so while there are still concerns about Woodson and whether he can coach the game and make those changes and win a basketball game, a hard-fought game, I have a feeling that he's going to be able to do those things because of the weapons that he has around him, because he went and hit the transfer portal. And again, people are taking notice of that. On top of, if Ja'Kai Newton is able to play this season, which if you're in the loop at all, you kind of understand what's going on there. And unfortunately, it's just not going the way we wanted it to. And so we'll keep you updated on him. But Bryson Tucker as well. You've got another freshman that you never know what's going to happen with him. So overall, while people still think, oh, yeah, they're a great roster, but, well, we just don't know what they're going to be as a team, I think they're going to be really good. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the Big Ten. I think they should be one of the top 4 seeds, a 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed, not one of the top 4, but maybe not that much, but I think they should be a 4 seed or better in the NCAA tournament. They're hanging around that 5, 6, 7 seed line, which is fine for now. But this year, I think, is going to be fun. And it needs to be. It needs to be a good year. Because if you want to start getting guys like Eric Reibe, you got to win some games. And you got to prove why 7-footers need to be here, why big-time recruits should want to come to play here. You win games, that'll sell them on that. I guarantee it. Well, coming up on our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, flipping over to the football side of things, Curt Cignetti had his press conference earlier this week, and I want to dive in to what he had to say about the offensive side of the football, particularly on the coaching staff and how it could it's going to look different with the staff, but how does the play calling, how does the game planning look a little bit different for an offense that they got to put up some points this season? We'll have that for you coming up next in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Final segment here on the show. Thank you so much again. Shout out to all of my everydayers for being here. You can become an everydayer too. Just like this video on YouTube. Comment down below on your thoughts on the recruiting class for basketball, what you want to see offensively for football, and then subscribe to the channel. Hit our logo and subscribe to us. It's free and it's the best way to support the show. Okay. Audio, do the same thing. Follow, subscribe, notify, all that good stuff. And thank you so much for doing all of that. As we look on the football side, Curt Cignetti, we had some of this on the Monday show, breaking down his press conference, and I want to get into what he said about Mike Shanahan, his offensive coordinator, and how the offense could just look a little different this year with a new quarterback who, whether it's Curtis Rourke or Taven Jackson, whoever the case may be, a lot of new receivers. I think a much improved offensive line. I think a running back room that's going to be solid and reliable. Nobody, I don't think, is going to put it as the top room in the Big Ten, but I do think it's going to be competitive this year. And here's some of the quotes that Cignetti had to say about Mike Shanahan and just his offensive staff. About Shanahan, he says, he has been with me a long time. He's a receiver guy. When I made the change at coordinator, I was looking for a quarterback guy at coordinator. Being able to have Tino Sunseri, the quarterback's coach, and come in made it possible for me to name Mike the coordinator. He says, Mike and Tino were great friends, played together. They go way, way back. Tino had the Alabama stuff with Sark, and then I was interested, and Mike's done a great job, and he's grown as a coordinator, and he just keeps getting better every year. That's a huge, huge deal, right? He got his guys. That's what I take away from most of this as Cignetti moves from James Madison to Indiana. is he has the guys around him. And there are so many times where a coach comes in year one and most of the staff is either fired or they leave because that's just how it works in college football. And so many times, year one head coaches are left scrambling, trying to just fill every and any spot they can with pretty much any person they can get their hands on, right? Any sort of coordinator or running back coach or, equipment manager, anything like that. There's so many positions to fill in such a limited amount of time, and not everybody's going to come with you. That's just how the reality of it works nowadays. And it's always, okay, let's get through year one, and then we'll go out and get our people and really lock down those positions and lock down those jobs for the guys that we want to be there. But in the beginning, you just don't have time to go through all that. You just got to get people in the door and start to get to work immediately. That doesn't seem to be the case with Cignetti in a weird way. It seems like almost everybody that he wanted to bring with him, either from James Madison or from the outside, he got him. He brought in exactly who he wanted to bring in. And man, that's such a huge leg up on so many year one head coaches because he doesn't have to stress for now about whether they're going to perform their duties or whether they're going to be reliable or whether they're going to do what he expects them to do as a quarterback's coach or a coordinator or whatever the case may be. He doesn't have to stress about that. And that doesn't have to be any of the blame this season as well. Yeah. That defensive coordinator just wasn't any good, man. And then he gets fired after year one or he leaves. And it's like, yeah, he wasn't our guy anyway. Wasn't his guy. That was never going to work. I don't know if that's going to be the case here. It doesn't seem like it right now. It seems like Cignetti and this staff have a huge advantage and are starting way ahead of everybody else. It's almost like the staggered track that you see in the Olympics right now. Yes, it evens out at the end, but I don't know. Maybe Cignetti and this staff are just going to keep that lead the whole way through. That's a huge advantage here. And I hope that's what happens, especially on the offensive side of the football with Mike Shanahan offensively calling plays. We're going to figure out what this game plan looks like. And that's what we're sort of figuring out right now with fall practice. Okay. If it ends up being Curtis Rourke at quarterback, okay, who are his go-to guys? Who are the receivers that we need to know that he wants to know that he's going to go to? We're still learning that. We're still figuring that out, right? Are they going to trust the run game? Is that going to be where they start things with this offense? Are they going to open it up and let the quarterback throw it deep downfield? Is there going to be RPO? Do they trust him to read that? Is it, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many different possibilities right now, but there's also so many question marks as well. But Cignetti is hopefully able to trust his offensive staff because they trust each other. They trust him. And this isn't a new coach with a new coordinator and a new quarterbacks coach that don't know each other and have to learn how each other talks and communicates and what they expect. That's not the case anymore. That's not the case. I guarantee that Cignetti has a way that he wants his coordinators to talk to the quarterbacks, and I guarantee that they're doing that. I guarantee he has a way that he wants his coordinator to talk to the linebackers and teach them and train them, and I guarantee that that is happening. Things like that are so crucial in a new staff, in a football facility, and that doesn't get talked about enough, and Cignetti's got that, and you can hear it in his words how he's just excited how they're here and how they keep getting better, and the unified or the unison, whatever you want to say, that they have is such an advantage for Indiana this season. And I hope that that plays out on the field this fall. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Shout out to my everydayers. You're the reason this show exists. You're the reason this show is doing very, very well. So thank you for that. If you want to find a free way to support the show, like the video and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Okay, that's the easiest way. Same thing on audio. Subscribe, notify, do whatever you got to do over there. If you're looking for your second listen of the day, because of course Locked On Hoosiers is your first listen every day, go check out Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. That is a fantastic show. And then your third listen can be Locked On College Basketball with Isaac and Andy. We're full in football basketball seasons now. So go check out those two podcasts. They're great, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We will be back tomorrow, okay? So until then, stay safe, Hoosier fans, and I'll talk to you later.